All right, and we are live for the Steelers Depot YouTube live stream. Mute my mic here. And as always, thank you guys so much for being here. Dave Bryan and myself here for the next hour to answer any and all of your Steelers questions. Dave, thank you for being here as always.
All right, happy Monday. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Peace and love.
Let me go ahead and pull up the stream here and make sure that everything sounds good and looks good and everyone can hear. Everyone can hear me. Everyone can hear Dave. Please let me know if there's an issue with audio. And
Monday Night Football in Vegas. We get to see everybody gets to get introduced to the what are they calling it? The Death Star here.
There you go. All right.
Wait, have you seen the outside of it? It kind of looks like something out of Star Wars.
Really? I don't think I've taken a good look at it yet.
Yeah, wait till you watch the pregame and all tonight and all. It's a snazzy stadium, that's for sure.
All right, everyone says we're sounding good, so thank you guys for being here. Russ, I Am Legend, David O, Brenton, Margie, Chris. Already got a lot of questions in the chat already. Everything still looks good because I'm getting a buffer message on my end. I want to make sure that that's not an issue, but I don't think it is. All right, let's start off with the questions then. Mutated Genome kicks things off, asking, "Hello, Alex and Dave. What's wrong with the run game? Are the tight ends losing their one-on-ones? Do they need to bring in an extra offensive tackle? Do they need to use a lead fullback more often?" That was a conversation we had on the podcast earlier today, Dave. And I think there might be a bit of an overcorrection to like the use of Derek Watt. I know we have a bunch of Derek Watt questions in here, but I am open to seeing one or two situational snaps where they go a little heavier with their best blockers.
Yeah, and look, I pulled up I put a GIF up on Twitter earlier today about that. What was it, the 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 or whatever down in the red zone down in there, where they put Eric Ebron on the end of the line as the one tight end against Bradley Chubb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no thanks.
How do you think that worked out?
Yeah, and I forgot to bring that up during the podcast today, but. There's no reason to hate on Eric Ebron on this, right? I mean, because he is who he is. That's one of the things we tried to get across in the podcast today. You don't take a person and make them stand in the garage and call him a car, okay? Right. You don't put him out there in a one tight end set on the inner line of scrimmage and expect him to goal line block Bradley Chubb. I mean, he lost that horribly. Now, would Connor have got in anyway? I don't know. It'd been one-on-one with a defensive back, and there was someone coming down from behind him. But I like my chances a lot better when at least Connor can get to the line of scrimmage and maybe take on a defensive back one-on-one. As a whole, as I said on the podcast earlier today, the successful run rates were there. All right, I know it probably didn't feel like it from a yards per carry, and even if you throw out the long run by Connor, it absolutely goes really lowers your yards per carry, and you shouldn't use yards per carry anyway. You should use success rates there, but. Look, they're going to have to they're going to have to do something here. Now, I'm not a fan of throwing Watt out there for 6 or 7 or 8 more snaps unless you've got the lead later in the games or whatnot. But they're going to have to do something to widen the defense, I think, a little bit. And that's one thing we said we thought that the Broncos did pretty good in this game as well, too. It's just two collapse up there, and you've got 2 running backs in Connor and Snell who aren't guys that are going to make many people missed at the line of scrimmage. So they're going to have to keep working on it. It might be a little bit of an overreaction right now, but we'll give it another game or two here. But they need to have more consistency in the running game.
Yeah, I mean, there's all avenues, all aspects of this offense, I think, still needs to be improved, and they're still figuring things out with Ben's return. A lot of new guys and the receivers and new faces with the offensive line. Dawson and Okorafor starting this past week. They did not start week 1. I mean, they still ran for a $113. Snell alone did against the Giants, and Connor still went for over 100 against the Broncos. Yes, largely inflated because of the final 59-yard run, but they still ran pretty efficiently. You pointed to the run success rate. There's still some situational stuff to work on. You just want to put guys in positions to succeed, and asking Eric Ebron to combo block last week or to block Bradley Chubb one-on-one this week, that's just square peg round hole stuff that isn't going to get you too many successes in that respect. So I think there's still a feeling out process in terms of some of these new guys. Chris W., he's not happy, even after a win. The offensive play calling is terrible. There is no flow to this offense. Our only hope of beating the Ravens or KC is to fire Randy now. That may be our first fire Fietner that I've
Mm.
personally seen so far. Did he call a great game? Arguably, no. The screen stuff, I'm going to have an article in the morning on the screen game and how bad it's been, and it's been really bad, and granted, a small sample size through 2 weeks, but I would point to the issue of why Denver got back in that game, why the offense had its issues, really kind of multifold in terms of the penalties that, stalled out drives, put yourself in 2nd and 15, turns into 3rd and 15. Yes, some of Fichtner's screens were bad, and that didn't help the situation, and then also just 2 turnovers. If Benny Snell doesn't fumble, if Ben doesn't throw that terrible lame duck to Justin Simmons, Denver does not get back in that game, and it's just a pretty comfortable victory. So I start with the players in yesterday's game, at least more so than the play calling.
As we talked this morning, 4 drops?
Yep, true.
Who gets credit for that? Does Randy have to get blamed for that as well too? I think the whole fire Randy thing is an overreaction already on that as well. Look, Ben's been a little bit rusty. You know, I don't think he played as well, yesterday, obviously, as he did in that from that 2-minute drive on in that first game as well too. It's too easy to look at this and say fire Randy Fichtner. Look, let's that's essentially their second preseason game. Okay. Because of no preseason, obviously just the second game for Ben as well too. So, let's not. I mean, they're 2-0. Let's not overreact just yet on any of this.
John Pennington, hey Dave and Alex, what do you think about Randy's play calling? Hopefully what we just said addressed that, John. Vincent coverage and McFarland still sitting on the bench. Vincent coverage, I thought he had good coverage on Gordon's touchdown. I just thought it was a great throw and catch by Driscoll to Gordon. Vince obviously is not going to be necessarily known for his coverage ability, but I thought that was just a really good play and kind of tip my hat to the Broncos on that one. McFarland on the bench, I would like to see him get involved, bring some explosive dynamic element to the offense, but maybe someone that's still trying to pick up the playbook, making sure he's got full trust in the coaching staff, so hopefully that will come as the season goes on.
Yeah, it was a great throw, great catch. I mean, Gordon really did a great job bringing that ball in. And look, there are going to be situations as the season goes on when Vince is out there a couple times a game when they're going to try to single him up and try to make him run with somebody, whether it be kind of a Tampa 2 type situation where he has to gain depth or something along those lines. Maybe, obviously you would hope maybe Bush would be more in line to do that kind of stuff, but there's going to be issues at times, with that. You just got to try to hide Vince as best as you can in that. But once again, going back to, Devin Bush was the bigger liability yesterday in coverage than Vince Williams. So let's get Devin sorted out first,
Absolutely. And then McFarland, do you want to see him this week against Houston, ideally?
Man, I would, Alex. I mean, you got him dressed, get the ball in his hand 1 or 2 times. Get people to start at least respecting. That was the big thing you and I said, right? If you're going to get McFarland into some of these games, first and foremost, you have to get the ball in his hands carrying the football. And then you can build off of that, whether it be the passing game, whether you use him as motion or whatever. But as soon as he can garner respect in some fashion as a runner, everything opens up after that. Whereas if you go back to the whole Dree Archer and
Chris Rainey.
Chris Rainey stuff. I mean, those guys were never even really a threat to even run the football. So, every time they came into the game, you might as well put a red flashing light on their helmet and all. So, I would like, they got him dressed this week. Now let's go a step further against the Texans and get him dressed and give him 5-6 snaps, something like that, and let him carry the ball once or twice.
Right. You drafted McFarland to bring a different dynamic to this run game that you didn't have, especially now that Kareth White's no longer a Steeler. He's in Detroit. That was the explosive big play ability that your run game has still been lacking. So let's get him on the field. I understand he's a rookie. I know it's been 2 weeks. You're going to show some patience, and dude's hopefully going to have a pretty long career in Pittsburgh, but hopefully at least start seeing some signs of what he can do, get a feel for him on an NFL field. That would be nice because it hasn't happened yet.
Even if you have to get him out there first, crack toss or something like that, right. Just get something, get the football in his hands where people know, where oppositions will know if he gets in the game, they're not afraid to hand him the football.
And I'd like to see a screen thrown to him. I kind of will show that in an article tomorrow about maybe the screen.
The wheel.
Running back wheel would be nice. The Marjorie guy, here we go, 2-0, so much better than the past few starts. Yeah, you said first time 2-0 since 2017, correct?
Yes, indeed. And now got a chance to go 3-0 for the first time since 2010. I guess
Mm.
that's the same Margie that follows us on Twitter. That's
Hmm.
always good about reaching out to the beat writers and all. So, Margie, God bless you. Keep it up. You're a good example for the listenership here. We appreciate you doing that on Twitter because it means a lot to the beat writers to hear from people.
Absolutely. Good point, and I appreciate it as well. David O, our own David O. Alex, how would you compare the officiating of the Broncos game with the Giants game? I don't really think about the officiating too much. I don't. Some of those calls were questionable. I think a lot of them, the Hilton one, I think Fitzpatrick one, the Edmonds call, were all reasonable. So I didn't love every single call, but I'm not going to sit there and blame the officials and use that as the reason why it was a close game.
Have you gotten a good look at the call on Edmonds or no?
Yeah, they showed that aerial view. I mean, he turned him. I mean,
Okay.
that's enough, I think, to justify. Now, had he not turned him, would the pass still been complete? I think it was a little off the mark. But I mean, Edmonds did hook him, and that's how rules are called this day. You touch a guy, and you're gonna get flagged for it.
I couldn't get it. I'm waiting. I want to see the all 22 of that, and maybe the end zone view will show a little bit better view on the all 22 of that. And the Bush one, I didn't. I mean, I thought the Bush was kind of
Yeah, that was ticky tack.
yeah, ticky tack on Vanette there, but okay.
ODG Dorkman, I had a coach that always said you can't play better than good enough to win. What does that mean, and how does it apply to the Broncos game? I'm not really sure what that means. You can't play better than good enough to win. You want to take a crack at that coach speak, Dave?
No, no, I don't want to. That's the first time I've heard anything kind of phrase like that. You can't play better than good enough to win. All
Well,
right.
it's a good riddle for as your coach. That's all I can say. In terms of the Broncos game, again, the reason why I think that one was closer than what it should have been was because of the third down inefficiency, 2 of 12, the turnovers, you turned the football over twice in key moments, and you had 10 penalties, offense and defense, both contributing factors in the penalty that negated the Deontay Johnson touchdown. Did they get points off the Deontay Johnson callback? Did they still get points in that drive or no? Do you remember?
On which one?
Where Deontay Johnson had the touchdown and they called it back. Did the Steelers get points on that drive or no? Do you remember?
I don't
Because
think they
I
did.
don't.
Did they?
Okay. I don't think so. But that's a direct moment where 7 points came off the board. Had they scored on that drive, then I'd like to know the context for that. But that's something else with pointing out how costly that penalty was by Cam Sutton.
I'll tell you in just a moment here.
While you do that, I will get to Russ Obenstein's comment. What's up, Alex and Dave? And Steelers Nation wasn't pretty, but I will take it. I'm with you, Russ. Not pretty, but Steeler fans know that these wins rarely are. They're rarely blowouts, and they will raise your blood pressure.
Next play they went up top to Claypool.
Oh, okay. So it canceled out. They still got 7 points out of that,
right.
But would have been nice to have the punt return touchdown. Let's scroll through here. Wade Johnson won. So what happens when DeCastro returns? DeCastro will start. Dotson will go to the bench and be some quality depth, and I'm happy with that. Kalema.
That should be the plan. Yep.
Kalema Kabatanton. Oh, I butchered that. I apologize. Was the empty stadium the reason why it was a close game? No, I'm not going to blame that on no fans. The reasons I mentioned earlier, the penalties, the turnovers, the third down inefficiency, I think were the reasons why that game was a lot closer than it should have been. Mr. Balls will ask us, Dave, I think the easiest question we're ever going to get, and I appreciate the softball down the middle. Did you like it when the Steelers won the football game? Yes, I did. I'm always, it's good for fun, it's good for work, it's good for my Twitter timeline when the Steelers win.
It's good for business.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Balls. Ross McCorkle, everyone, Ross McCorkle says, hey, Dave and Alex, happy Victory Monday. Happy Victory Monday to you too, Ross. And SteelerFan1933 says, like button people, you're not in Cleveland. Yeah, if you could like the stream, that would help bring more people. And you can send a super chat if you want to have a guarantee of your question being answered, because these chats have gotten larger over the past couple weeks, and we appreciate all the support on the channel. The one LC7 says, Connor ran out of gas. Yeah, he's that's the longest run he's had in the NFL, and I don't know how many longer runs he had at Pitt, so he kind of ran out of juice at the end, but that secured the victory, and that's all I really cared about.
As they like to say, as I like to say when it comes to backs like that piano got real heavy. Either that or the gorilla decided to climb on the back right there. But yeah, he was running out of steam there at the end of. But look, my biggest fear at that point is just hold on to the football, man. Of course, the other side of me that had the minus.
You're always thinking like that, yeah.
Was thinking get in the end zone, but more than anything, just hold on to the football there. Yeah, that piano got heavy at the end.
Blasting Cow says, how do you feel about the Steelers' chances of a Super Bowl? Let me frame the question this way, Dave. Are you more optimistic, less optimistic, or the same about the Steelers' chances of winning a Super Bowl 2 games into the season as you were before the season began?
I'm right where I was. I mean, I definitely like their
I mean,
chances,
you
but
picked them to win, so
right,
yeah.
right. I mean, I'm not swayed either way. If anything, I mean, obviously disappointed with how how things transpired. I mean, they once they lost their starting quarterback, Locke. That I envisioned that game being a runaway.
Mm-hmm.
And really should have been with the way they were hitting the quarterback, the takeaways and the short fit, everything. It just had to feel like this thing was going to be 33-3. And for it to come down to a fourth and short situation there, and the whole game essentially rest on that. Yeah, I mean, it kind of disappoints you there for sure. But I mean, it is only 2 games into this thing. They didn't have any preseason. They still got obviously a very favorable schedule. Really, their first tough game probably isn't going to be, at least knock on wood, shouldn't be until Tennessee. The Eagles don't look like they're going to be much, at least offensively,
Mm-hmm.
nor defensively right now either. On top of it, so no, I would say that I haven't been swayed one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pick them to win the Super Bowl this year, but my stance was they certainly had the roster to compete for it, and I don't think that my stance has changed. 2 games in, they'll have a little tougher test against Houston on Sunday, so that'll be maybe a better litmus test. Certainly the best quarterback that they faced so far with Deshaun Watson, so that may give a slightly better gauge to where this team is, specifically where this offense is at. I am Legend 74. Think we might see more of Watt in their blocking on runs near the goal line instead of running plays out of shotgun. I'd like to see maybe 1 or 2 situational snaps, as I said earlier, to see Watt in there, but we're not talking about getting Watt on the field for 20 snaps a game. That's just not going to happen.
No.
Renton717. Hey guys, do either of you think the field conditions were an issue at MetLife Stadium in regard to injuries? I know what happened in San Francisco or with the Jets game yesterday at MetLife was certainly one of the big talking points of players that they did not like the field. Didn't seem like the Steelers had that big of an issue with it. I don't know if things change week to week, but according to at least the players that were on the field, they thought the field was too sticky, and that may have contributed to the rash of knee injuries we saw yesterday between the Jets and 49ers.
They asked Tyson Alualu about that. If people get a chance to run over to Steelers.com and watch the Zoom video they had with him, the media session today, right out of the bat, he was asked about the field situation in New York there, and he look. I mean, Tyson's played in quite a few games around the league. He said you can tell when the difference on your body when you play on turf versus natural grass and all like that. And he went on to say that even he at MetLife kind of tweaked his ankle a little bit.
Right.
So
and Banner did tear his ACL, so that's true.
Right. So I mean, these if you get on Twitter and you research it, this field had to be certified and was on middle of September, blah blah blah. But look, turf, you catch a foot on a seam or whatever, and that's all she wrote. And that it is kind of interesting. Now you've had 2 games there, and you've had a lot of people lost to knee injuries here.
Accidentally skipped a couple questions, so let me circle back. Russ Obenstein says, do you guys think Deontay is on thin ice with all these fumbles? Pretty sure I'm right. Think he's already lasted longer with this amount than anyone I have seen since Tomlin took over. I mean, the fumbles are certainly a concern. He's got 7 in 18 career games, but when he makes big plays, he makes big plays. And aside from that aside from the early fumbles, the muff punt against the Giants and that fumble on the jet play against the Broncos, he's been excellent. And the good is outweighing the bad, and unless that changes, Johnson's going to be the starter and see the field.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, he's not going to lose snaps or anything like that. He's got to get it up underneath control. Now, obviously, you start becoming a huge liability in turning the football over. Well, then that's a different story. But I mean, what he brings after catch and all like that, and punt. He's a dangerous kid, man, out in space. I'll tell you that. I mean, we saw a little bit of that at Toledo. Him able to stick that foot in the ground and make people miss. But boy, he's really. What did I say? 18 missed tackles or forced missed tackles last season, and he's probably got about 4 or 5 already this season here. So yeah, I mean, look, he's got to be more consistent right out of the tunnel. and
Right.
luckily he's been able to bounce back from these two slow starts right out of the chute. Now let's just get rid of the slow starts altogether, and hold on to the football in the process. Him and Benny Snell.
Amen to that. Yeah, I do appreciate his mental toughness and ability to refocus after those early mistakes. That has kind of been a good trait of his. The Bengals game last year had a fumble on the first possession, and he bounced back in that one. So you don't want to have him bounce back, but at least he's capable of that, and that is the mark, I think, of a mentally tough player, but still a pretty young guy. Steeler fan 1933 drops a super chat. No questions from me. I already know it all. Just respect and 12 years of support for the Steelers Depot crew. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Steeler fan. We definitely appreciate all the support that you have shown.
Thank you, Steeler fan. And boy, the guys were after it yesterday. Preseason's over for our crew, isn't it?
No rust here.
Yeah, they were getting after it yesterday.
And Steeler fan, thank you for being one of the few fans from my Out of the Park series on the channel. We need people like you out there supporting the virtual Pittsburgh Pirates because the real Pirates are trash. Mutated Genome. I have heard many concerns about Bush's poor pass coverage of Fant. Can any inside linebacker / middle linebacker be expected to blanket a premier tight end? They're going to outrun or at least outsize any linebacker covering them. No. Yeah, there's some truth to that. I think on the Fant touchdown, that's a really tough play for Bush to make. I mean, I'm sure he won't make an excuse for it. The coaches will make an excuse for it. But he's, as you said on the podcast, Dave, inside leverage on an out-breaking route. It's a really good route sail combination that Denver ran. That's just a tough play to make. And Fant's a really good athletic tight end. So you still want to see Bush make some more plays in coverage. He hasn't really made one in quite some time. But the talent's there, and I'm not as concerned about it, I think, as some people might be.
Yeah, that corner route, boy, that's especially from Fant. Yeah, I don't remember when watching Fant's college tape him being used that much on a corner.
All right. Well, played at Iowa, so they didn't throw the ball that much in
Iowa. Right. So they definitely are using him right. That's the kind of way where he can win against linebackers there. And yeah, look, that's not going to be the last time that you see Bush have to defend that. You put it on tape like that, and people are going to go after you.
At least the Texans don't really have a super athletic tight end. They got Darren Fells, who's a big body at like 6'7", so that could be a matchup problem in terms of the size. But in terms of the speed, I don't know if they're facing an athletic tight end for at least a little bit. Can't think of the schedule off the top of my head, but they won't really see one in Week 3 against Houston.
I want to. It makes. I'm getting jealous here. How about let's run some cell routes down in the red zone and get Eric Ebron up against somebody's linebacker now.
That would be nice. Yeah, they're paying those tight ends a lot of money. I'm looking for a little more production than what they've got in the first 2 weeks. James Naylor, do you think Claypool dispelled the notion that he doesn't play up to his time 40 speed at the Combine yesterday? I don't know if I saw those comments a lot pre-draft. I'm sure there was some of it, James. But yeah, I mean, I love the catch, and obviously the touchdown itself was awesome, but just how effortless it looked like he was gliding away from Ojemida at the end of that one was just really impressive. Just how easy of a mover he is. He's a long strider, and they just don't make too many guys of his makeup.
I don't know if it was so much time playing up to time speed criticism as much as it was the stuff that I've been noting about him just winning off the line against press and stacking. It's one thing that there's a lot of fast corners that can turn and run, as well. But I mean, I never saw it at the college level where he's outrun some linebackers on some mismatches and all down the middle of the field, But as far as him, and he's also had some like the Iowa State kid in that what was it, the bowl game, I think, where the kid slipped off the line, and of course he beat him on down the field like that too. But there's hardly any instances of him winning and stacking deep down the field that way. So that was the only box that I had left unchecked on him. We saw the down the field contested catch. We saw him along the sideline doing a good job with body control. We saw the inside the red zone out of the slot quick slants. We saw the over the middle 5-yard crossing routes. What else did we see? On it, we saw the end zone jump. Really the end zone kind of jump ball kind of situations there with him. What he did yesterday was the one box that I had unchecked on Chase Claypool.
Right, and he showed it. And I think there was
Right.
even that clip I had posted in week 1 against the Giants where he wasn't targeted, but he beat press and got vertical and stacked the corner. And so you're seeing some of that, the hand use, ability to win off the line, some of the quickness, and of course his size and just physical ability and long stride to gain ground and to get vertical and create space. And I think we're seeing that early with Chase Claypool. I think we'll continue to see that as he progresses and he gets more comfort in the offense and they get more comfortable with him in the offense. Let's see, where was I at here in the comments? Wade Johnson 1. Do you think the Steelers will move Matt Filer back to tackle when DeCastro returns? No. I think as long as the core four plays like the way he did Sunday and against the Texans, J.J. Watt will be a much tougher challenge than Jeremiah Tachu and Malik Reed. But unless the core four really struggles, they're going to keep Filer at left guard.
Yeah, pack them sandwiches.
What's that a reference?
Pack a lunch, pack
lunch.
the sandwiches,
Okay.
because he gonna need it. Gonna be interesting. Look, you want to know where he's at? You'll find out. You'll find out this next Sunday.
Yeah, Watt's power against the core four, who's not known for the power and being able to defend the bull, is going to be the concern there. And then again, with Dotson, I know Dotson played well at right guard, but he can move him to left guard, which is a new position for him. He may not get the same results. Let him get comfortable at right guard at least, and let him grow there instead of trying to move him around and maybe hinder that development early on.
Damn, J.J. Watt is so damn powerful on him. Damn, that long arm of his. I mean, and look, a core for one of the things with him, I think, is hand usage.
Yep.
Got
to keep him inside. His hands are always drift too far outside.
Yeah, he's got to make sure he gets them hands, up and uses them, because if he doesn't against Watt's gonna probably school him pretty good here. So it's definitely going to be a measuring stick game, I guess you could call it, on Sunday against the Texans and Watt.
Kalema Kabatinkin. I said that wrong again, I'm sure. I'm going to just apologize across the board every time I come to your question. Dotson looked really solid during the game. Do you think he's part of the future? I hope he can be, and certainly there could be openings next year with Filer and Villanueva set to be free agents. Banner set to be a free agent too. I think he will circle back on a cheap minimum deal coming off the injury. But yeah, early. I mean, I don't want to make any long-term claims right now, but I think Dotson looked pretty good against the Broncos.
I thought he looked good on a TV tape for sure, especially in pass protection. Run is kind of hard. It's even harder to kind of judge that because of the TV angles. So, I mean, we're itching to get a hold of the all 22 when it comes out here in the next 24 hours, hopefully, to get a better look. But overall, according to the TV tape, I thought he played well, and especially in pass protection. There a couple of gaps that looks like I want to look at in the running game there. Yeah, great first start. I mean, really, full game in like 8 or 9 snaps or whatnot. He's played really, really well. I was disappointed they didn't run the power with him.
Right, that was a little weird. They did it last week.
Yeah, I was very disappointed in that, and that's probably look, you want to try to get that running game juiced. The perfect opportunity to get him out there moving in space there, doing that. So now, as far as the future goes, past this year, I mean, obviously, why would you move an all pro guard, from his spot? One would think maybe. If Filer flies off elsewhere, that you would have Dotson be the one to move, but Dotson's 50-something career college starts at Louisiana Lafayette. Him being the younger one and being more conditioned at right guard, maybe DeCastro is the one that you want to try to see about flipping over. So I have a feeling it's going to be those two will be your guards next year.
That's certainly possible. And if you could, in theory, if you could re-sign Filer, I know we might disagree a little bit on the chances of that, but if you re-sign Filer, then move him to right tackle, and if a core four can play well at right tackle, Philly walks, and you move a core four to left tackle, there's your 5. You don't have to bring anyone else new in, and that, to me, is an ideal scenario. But that's just me. That's me wishing, I guess, right now. I think maybe one reason why they didn't run power, so they didn't want to leave Bradley Chubb unblocked and let him potentially blow up a play. A little easier to run power and kick out a Tachu or Reed. Just my guess. LU, do you think the fans in Dallas helped them win that game? I sure miss seeing those towels waving at Hines. I'm sure the energy of the crowd noise certainly helps. That will help any team whenever fans return across the NFL. But I think what helped Dallas win that game more was Atlanta short-circuiting and not recovering that onside kick. Fans or not, that was the reason why Dallas got back in that game. Playdead0112. Hey, Dave. Vince Williams against the run. How good is he? How good is he, Dave?
He plays to run well, man. He can. Look, one of the things I've always said about him coming out of Florida State. Now, I was not a fan of him in coverage right out, right out of the draft. I mean, you could. He was flat-footed a lot on the tape at Florida State. Really not asked to do a lot in coverage anyway there at Florida State. But man, he's always been able to play downhill, point A to point B, and man, when there was a point I think in the second half there where he had either a tackle for loss or it was I think a run for 1 yard or something like that. Man, he just lit that player up. I said there goes Vince lighting matches out there, and he plays down. He's always played downhill really really well, especially at Florida State. And also that's never changed. He processes real well for the most part. He does a good job of keeping himself clean and out of trash and all, and he's a heavy hitter too. Heavy hitter, the llama.
Yeah, no, I agree. He plays the run. He plays downhill as with as much physicality and intensity as basically any linebacker in football. But he's also a really smart processor that doesn't get out of position. He's sound in his run fit. He takes good angles with the football, and he finishes with authority and all good marks of a run stopping linebacker.
And one other element of it that's really kind of undersold with him is, even go back to the games last year against the Ravens. Nobody on that Steelers defense will take on a pulling guard like he does, and he will blow up a play. He'll sacrifice himself so that the whole play will bust down behind it, and somebody else will get credit for the tackle in that. So there's a whole thing with mentioning right shoulder, wrong shoulder, and all like that. He's usually good with the right shoulder. Choosing the right shoulder and taking on blockers out. It's the little elements out of that, because there's probably a lot of linebackers that have come and gone in this league that move point A, point B downhill well, but they just don't read and process well, and they don't right shoulder, and all the other little things.
Yeah, a very technical, detail-oriented player that I think is really intelligent and continues to get better even as he hits, is he 30? How old is Vince now? 29, 30 years old?
It seemed like yesterday seeing that clip at the Senior Bowl, him just blowing somebody up at the Senior. That's what caught my eye on him initially, was at the Senior Bowl. I didn't know who he was until the Senior Bowl, and then obviously he made a big hit at one of the practices there, and you dive into the tape, and there you go.
Russ and Ross have questions about Tyson Alulu. Russ says, would you all agree Tyson had a good game again before the entire defense went home in the third quarter? And Ross says, does Alulu return for another modest contract? He is 33, but playing like he is in his prime. Yeah, I mean, Alulu has found the fountain of youth. I want to know what the secret is. He's been fantastic. I'd love to be able to re-sign him because there isn't a whole lot of nose tackle options. Carlos Davis, the rookie, will be in his second year next year, but I assume will be unproven. And if you can get Alulu for a cheap 1 to 2 year deal with the way he's playing right now, man, age is just a number apparently to that guy.
Boy, coming out of the 2018 season, I wondered if he might be a cap casualty. Just because really didn't light it up that much on tape or anything. But man, going back to last season, and we've talked about this countless times on the podcast, really a great 2019 season. And now I had my reservations. I got to admit, I had my reservations about him moving over to the middle there. But boy, was that the right choice. Now, was his game yesterday as good as the week 1 game? Probably not, but it sure wasn't awful. I'll tell you that. And as Alex and I mentioned on the podcast this morning, there, I mean, he had 2 plays right in a row where he had the sack and then followed up with the batted down pass on top of that. So yeah, he's playing really really well right now, and really has been for over a full season now. I mean, you could go all the way back to, I think, well before Tuitt suffered his injury last year. I thought Lulu had some good snaps in some of those early games.
I agree. Really impressed by him, and I'm not sure where that resurgence has come from, but I'm really impressed by it. His hand use, his ability to defeat blocks, and he's gone against some new centers. Nick Gates was a former tackle. Lloyd Cushenberry was a rookie, but man, he is schooling some of these guys for sure.
Boy, it would be nice. It'd be nice if he wants to play. If he stays healthy this year and continues playing at a good level here. If he wants to play one more year to get him back on a minimum signing benefit contract where he's pocketing $1 million and you get a reduced cap hit, that would be the best of the both worlds.
Agreed. Mark Leslie, I know it's early days, being only 2 games into the season, but how do you think the Steelers stack up to some of the other teams likely to make the playoffs? They stack up well. I just want to see this offense with a little bit more consistency, a little more firepower, a little more of that put the other team away mentality that Baltimore and Kansas City has, because if you want to beat those teams and match up well against those teams, you're going to have to put up points. You're going to put up like 30 minimum, even with this Steelers defense. So I do want to see that, but I think the Steelers overall are in a good place right now.
I think the schedule overall too, with kind of the order that it's happening here and the type of quarterbacks that they're facing, kind of will give us a good idea, because they're going to face a lot of, look, you've already faced a couple of young quarterbacks, so kind of what I would call kind of warm up games here, with some younger quarterbacks. Now you're going to get a strong armed mobile guy, in Watson in the Texas. You're going to get a power running game out of the Titans, with Henry. That's going to test you pretty good. There you're going to have more kind of West Coasty, I guess, with the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
With Wentz and all like that. And then you're going to have a guy in Baker Mayfield in week 6 that caused you a few issues outside of the pocket last year, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then obviously in week 7 you get the Lamar Jackson test there. So I like the way the order of this schedule. I didn't really think of it until here we are in the schedule now. But after the first 2 games here and kind of looking ahead at the next 5, I like the way it sets up, because there's going to be different kinds of tests, and especially for the defense, for your defense, because this defense, if this defense can pass this test, throughout the season here, I think the offense is going to be good enough to do their part there. So.
Yeah. I'm with you for sure. Ali Howard's here in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. Pitman says Ben needs to have less than 5 interceptions this year and stay healthy to win the North. I agree about the health part. 5 interceptions is a bar. Obviously, you don't want to have too many, but I think 5 might be. I think he can get away with a couple more than that.
I'll take the over.
I will as well.
We don't need 16 is what we don't need 15 is what we don't need.
4 in the red zone and stuff like that will kill you.
Right.
Tyler DiGiacomo, any concern about the running backs? Connor regressing? No, I think Connor looked good. I was happy with his performance. While, as you said, the average before the 59-yard scamper wasn't great, the effectiveness and the run success rate was good for James Conner. It had to have been, 8 for 14 or something prior to that run? Something like that, Dave?
Roughly.
Yeah, it was a good percentage. Whatever the number was, it was good. And so
here's for everybody listening, a good little exercise to do kind of during the games if you have time. You're looking for 40% on first down. So if it's 1st and 10, you want a 4-yard run or greater. All right. On second down, you want 50% of whatever remaining yardage is. So if it's 2nd and 5, a successful run is 2.5 yards or more. All right. And then obviously on 3rd and 4th down, you want the remaining yardage. If you're running on 3rd and 2, you better get 2 yards for a successful run. Or in any situation, 6 or more yards on any run is a successful run. So that's the long and short of successful run rates right there. Follow that and start marking them off as you go, and you can kind of follow along with a loose interpretation of your own run success rates. So when it comes to running backs in the NFL and success rates, if you're ideally, you want 49% or higher, okay? Mm-hmm. If you hit that, you're in pretty decent shape as far as run success rates go. Now, the Steelers running backs the last few years have been 46, 45%. And, that might say, well, that's not that far off 50%. But when you look at, that's a good chunk of runs in there that aren't successful there.
Yeah, that's really good perspective, and I think run success rates have certainly become a lot more in vogue and a lot more of the focal point, as much as yards per carry in recent years.
Because you bring it back in, you bring it back in, and 1st and goal at the 1-yard line, and he scores. Well, that's only 1 yard. It's 1 yard per carry. That looks crappy on a stat sheet, but it's a successful run.
That's what happened to Connor yesterday. He had a 2-yard touchdown run. Yeah. So. Good example. Paul Brown, why do we always see the Steelers playing down to teams they seemingly on paper should beat handily? Is this a coaching issue or attribution of the lack of preseason? Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, it's just the Lord just trying to punish me is basically what it is. I apologize to the rest of you. It's that hard life that I live that he's making sure I get punished pretty good here. No, I wish I had an answer for it. It happens way too often that we're sitting there, sweating it out in the fourth quarter, it seems like. But here, yeah, at least they still win a good chunk of
Mm-hmm.
these.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's tough to explain, but what is the Steelers' giveaway streak right now? Isn't it like 25 straight games with a turnover?
25 games. I'm
Yeah.
about ready for that streak to end.
Amen. That's a good number of reason why these games always seem close. Because when you give away the football, you reduce a possession of your own. You give the opposing team an extra possession, usually on a short field. That tends to make games close. If you didn't give away the football so consistently, you'd have more blowouts. I think it's partially what it comes down to. Mike Camp. Hey, Alex, do you think McFarland will get any touches next week? I hope so. I don't know. Let's see if he's active again. I mean, there's no guarantee of that, though. I suspect he will be with his team being in pretty good pretty good shape health-wise. But I don't know. I would like to see it, though, Mike.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised he didn't at least get 3 or 4 snaps and at least one touch yesterday. So I think it's coming. There's no reason to continually dress him and not get him on the field. I think what Tomlin wanted to do yesterday with him was take him through the process, all
Mm-hmm.
right, of getting him mentally ready for a game. All right. Now, obviously, if injuries presented itself, he would have been in a game. But I think they had the extra kind of roster spot, if you will, to speak. And I think he just wanted to take him through the process. And now he's been through that process. I would expect for him to go through that process again on Sunday at Heinz Field, and I expect him to mark it down right now. He'll play at least 4 snaps. Or I'm gonna point to the fence right. He's gonna play at least 4 snaps
Oh,
against the Texans.
Babe Ruth hitting a home run. Dave Bryan
That's
calling for
right.
4 snaps.
There you go.
There you go. I hope so. Yeah, and will he get a touch? I would assume he would get a
Yeah,
touch if he's
yeah,
out there 4 snaps.
yeah. If you get him out there 4 snaps, he should have at least 1 or 2 touches.
All right, let's hope you're right. I'm rooting for it. Mark Leslie, with some key players likely to be gone next year, who would you most like to see step up this year, and could that make a difference as to who we try and re-sign? The outside linebackers, Highsmith, Daney, I think have played well in limited rotational action right now, but I don't know if I have a player who comes to mind immediately right now, just given how many free agents there are.
Say what was the question again?
With some key players likely to be gone next year, who would you most like to see step up this year, and could that make a difference as to who we try and resign?
Oh wow.
I mean, again, with the
Yeah.
receiver group, if Juju would have walked, Claypool, Washington stepping up. Um,
I don't think you're going to have a choice to let some of these guys walk in anyway,
yeah.
just because the cap situation there. So, yeah, that's kind of tough. It's not that you don't want to keep. We're not going to want to keep a lot of these guys. It's just it's going to be tough unless the cap comes in, well above 175 million.
The one LC7, Dave and Alex, have you guys ever thought about or tried to get with the beat writer from Wednesday to discuss the game on Monday podcast? I suppose that's a possibility, but I know the beat writer schedules get pretty crazy, especially right after a game. They might be traveling, coming back from a game, just getting settled in or whatever, and our podcasts usually run 2 hours with just Dave and I, so I'd be worried about making it too long with an extra beat writer on.
Yeah, I'll turn these things into 4-hour affairs here real easy if you let me, folks.
Let's see. Paul Brown, with Kevin Dotson translating a lot of his college tape to the field on Sunday, albeit one game. My question is, why do you believe the All-American fell to round 4? I would say two major reasons pop to mind immediately. The fact that he did play in a smaller school. I know it's Sun Belt. It's not like it's NAIA, but still Sun Belt is not the SEC. And the big one to me, not going to the combine in a year where there was such a lack of information on these guys. You didn't have physical on Kevin Dotson. You didn't know a medical evaluation that probably was a deciding factor in who would you draft in some war room. So I think had he been at the combine, he's probably a day 2 selection.
We talking about Dotson?
Yeah, Dotson, why he fell to round 4.
And look, guards get crapped on. I've said it for years.
Mm-hmm.
Guards get crapped on. I mean, hope that's not too
think we'll
dirty
be
of a
all right.
word.
It's on a bumper sticker on your car.
Look, fungible guards get crapped on.
Run the power. It's a lot of guard-related bumper stickers. You're kind of cornering the market over there, Dave.
Got this kind of fetish, don't I?
All right. Any other reasons why you think Dotson fell, other than just kind of the positional value or lack thereof?
And I think all that you said there. I think just a lot of unfortunate things that had him fell through the cracks there. Really.
Yeah, I agree. Pittman, McFarland, first carry will be a touchdown. All right, so you heard it here first from Pittman. Khalil says Chase Claypool needs more reps. I think he's continued to. He got more snaps in week 2 than week 1, right? Like 5
I
more.
think, yeah, I think a handful more. Yeah.
And that goes into Sean May's question: how long do you think it will take for Chase Claypool to cut more into James Washington's playing time? If he keeps making plays the way he did Sunday, he will continue to kind of eat away at that playing time. The Washington has played well. I don't want to discount that. And I think what I'm almost as much, if not more, impressed by with Claypool, and you touched on this, Dave, was 3 special teams tackles. I mean, that
Whew.
does not happen too often for anyone, much less a rookie wide receiver in his second career game.
You got a nice in another week or two. If things keep it up, you're gonna have a little nice little dog and bone situation there.
Mm-hmm.
With your Z guys. And look, James Washington, hell of a damn effort on that touchdown in week 1.
Yeah.
Really was. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you want, definitely want to see. Now, has he been the long ball producer that he was at Oklahoma State? No, he hasn't. And still kind of really, Claypool's, slowly, catching up in that, that long touchdown was definitely a feather in his cap right there. So, yeah, you'll probably start seeing those guys probably get a little bit closer in snap selection here, probably. But you can bet Mike Tomlin's going to start pitting them against each other a little bit more too.
Mm-hmm. Competition brings out the best. Have over 100 in the chat, so we just cracked 100. So appreciate that, guys, very much. Justin Puthin says, is Juju more likely to be re-signed after the last 2 games? I don't know if more likely, but I do think he's starting to remind fans how good he is and how injury-plagued just 2019 was for him. So I think the Steelers already knew that. I think they were expecting a bounce-back season. I know I was. It doesn't change the financials or the math of the situation, but I do think he's at least starting with that reminder of that this guy can be a bona fide number 1 receiver, and Deontay Johnson, of course, is emerging as well. Let's see. Dozer the Cat on the Fant touchdown with Bush chasing. It was pointed out Hilton and Edmonds were pointing at each other. Any clue what happened on that play? Seems it wasn't 55's fault. That's possible. You brought that up on the podcast today.
Right.
I will have to check the all-22 on that and see exactly what the Steelers are running on that play because I'm not 100% sure. Dozer, that's a good question.
Yeah, the only thing I just don't know if he dove down. It's so hard to tell because we don't have the full view of that yet,
Mm-hmm.
But it did catch mine, and I mentioned that to Alex this morning on the podcast.
Yeah. Kalema says, are we going to keep seeing Hilton on the blitz? I think so. I think eventually they'll have to scale that back a little bit. I do think how blitz heavy they've been, which is even blitz heavy for the Steelers' lofty standards, is one reason why you've seen some bigger plays allowed at the back end of things. Not to excuse that entirely, but that's probably at least one contributing factor. But yeah, Hilton is among, if not the most effective slot blitzer in football. He's got 2 sacks in 2 games, and offenses have to prepare for that, have to counter that, which is not something they have to do every single week. And Hilton's been very effective at it. K. Jackson, Pittsburgh. Does anyone know why UG3 seemed to get demoted behind Robert Spillane? All the talk was that Gilbert was making great progress during camp. It's a good question. I wish I had a good answer for you. I do want to know that they generally play 2 different positions. Spillane's the buck linebacker, the strong side linebacker behind Vince Williams, and UG3 is more of the Mac linebacker behind Devin Bush. So there is a slight difference in terms of the position that they play. I wish he would get a hat. I think that it would be nice to see him out there, at least get work on special teams, but it seems like he's going to be a healthy scratch for the time being.
Yeah, it does, and didn't see that one coming. From this offseason. So that was a little bit. Look, when you have Marcus Allen, who's now in your linebacker room there, and him being kind of a more of a position flexible player, a guy that also has some special teams positives to him as well too. And you've got, technically, if you're going to consider him a linebacker in this room, how many linebackers do you have in a roster now? You're not going to address all of them. Somebody's got to be the odd man out, and it's probably going to be one of those inside guys because you only have what do you got, 4 on the outside, right?
Right.
So somebody's got to be the odd man out inside. And Spillane is as good of a special teams player as UG3 is. Spillane's better, I think. And I think the battle of the helmet right now is between those two, and maybe a little bit of Marcus Allen in there too. But I think it's mostly between Spillane and UG3. I didn't see this coming. I would have bet you that UG3 would have dressed for these first 2 games initially. Now, obviously, I predicted that he was going to be inactive this week, only from seeing him being inactive in week 1. But I would have never bet that at the start of the season.
I'm with you. Evan Furnish, where are the tight ends? Do you feel like they will have to increase workloads, or are the Steelers going to stick to the spread? I mean, they're playing, they're just not getting targeted a whole lot. So, yeah, the tight end production in 2 games is what, 7 catches for 70 yards, something like that, no touchdowns, and they're not exactly giving you a whole lot as blockers either. So, hopefully, as Ebron gets worked into the offense more and they kind of figure out where he fits and maybe more importantly, where he doesn't fit, they get him involved more because you paid him to catch passes, and he's been relatively quiet through 2 weeks.
Start scouting them tight ends in college.
Draft for one in the top 3 rounds for the first time in 13 years, like I've been talking about for a while now. But to be fair, there are so many weapons on this team too. I mean, it is hard to. You're not going to focus on the tight end because there are Juju and Deontay and Washington. There's just a lot of guys to spread the love to. Greg Aspen, how about Edmonds finally making a splash play, guys? I assume you're referring to the sack at the end of the game. Yeah, that was great. Good scheme, good finish by Edmonds. He had a break up in this one. I thought Edmonds had an okay game, maybe a little better than okay, a serviceable, competent game for him, and made a couple. Had a couple of moments in coverage with, I think, one breakup for sure, then kind of one where he closed quickly and helped contribute to the incompletion. So, not a bad day for Terrell Edmonds.
Tight end 6 for 66. Bunch of sixes.
That's a sign of the devil. Made a deal with the devil, getting those move tight ends in.
Look, I warned people not to be too bullish on the Ebron, stats out of the shoot here. I mean, he's got 4 catches for 61. I think it's a little much, a little hope, a little too strong to hope for 3 catches a game out of him, and even 3 times 16, that'd be 48. He's gonna be hard he's gonna be hard to hit that 40 number, I think.
Yeah, and Vance is looking like Vance's last year in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Brian says, "Hey Alex, Dave, hope y'all have a good week. Love the coverage this weekend. Thank you so much for Brian. Appreciate the support and the love." Where am I at here? Blake Munchell says, "The first time I am able to make a live stream because class let out early, but I don't have any questions. Keep up the good work. You have made me a better football fan." I really appreciate that, Blake. That means a whole lot to Dave and I. So thank you. I'm glad you could be here for the live stream.
One thing we try to tell our writers or contributors to do too is always a learning and teaching thing. Try to at least give in one post or one film room or one podcast, try to give the listener or the reader just one other thing that they didn't know, and constantly try to be teaching. And we constantly are trying to learn ourselves, and try to get better at every aspect of what we do in it there.
K. Jackson, Pittsburgh. Claypool seems to be a matchup nightmare for cornerbacks with his size and speed. Shouldn't he get more playing time with his special skill set, a.k.a. Martavis Bryant? I understand the point. Remember, Bryant didn't play till week 8 of his rookie year. So these guys, they're a little bit of a developmental thing. I think Martavis is probably more raw than Claypool coming out, but there's a lot of weapons, and you got some talent with Juju and Deontay. And as you always point to, Dave, if you're going to play Claypool, who are you taking off the field?
Right. Wasn't Martavis Bryant, what is coming out game against the Texans?
It was. What? It was a 2-touchdown game, I think. Yeah. Good eye there. Yeah, good memory, as always. Rob Coe, how long until do you think UG3 gets his first defensive snaps? He's got to get a hat on game day first.
Yeah, let's get that helmet back on him first.
Get him out of sweatpants. It may be a little while, it appears, Rob. ODG Dorkman. And I don't know if we have time to expand on this. We only have a couple minutes left. But Dave, can you do an article on the different types of successful plays? I think that's a reference to our conversation about the run success rate earlier. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if you can put that in the chat, ODG Dorkman, but asking about different types of successful plays.
Well, yeah, successful play is successful play, whether it be running back, wide receiver. Look, you want 40% on any given play. If it's first down, you want 40% of the needed yardage. So if it's 1st and 10, you want 4 yards. If it's 2nd down and 10, you want at least 50%. So whatever the 2nd yard distance is, cut it in half, and you need at least that to be a successful play. Anything more than that, 3rd and 4th down, whatever it is, if it's 3rd and 28 for it to be a successful play, technically they tell you 6 yards, on any given play of 6 yards or longer is a successful play. But obviously on third or fourth down, if you don't get the necessary yardage needed, well then it's not a successful play. Although when you can't expect a running back to pick up a 3rd and 22, okay,
Hmm.
on a draw. But if that running back gets 6 yards on a 3rd and 22, that should go down in the books as a successful play.
Right, all right. Couple more questions before we run out of time. As always, we're here Monday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Will Fernandez, hey Dave and Alex, is Minka not making more splash plays a result of the defensive scheme, or are there opposing teams just not throwing at him? It's a little bit of both because they will primarily play him as the free safety, and teams obviously do not want to throw near him. There's a reason why the majority of big plays allowed by this defense have been outside the numbers. Aside from the Darius Slayton touchdown, that's when Minka rolled down and Hayden had to replace as the deep safety. So teams aren't throwing in Minka's airspace, and that's something worth mentioning, although it does not show up on the stat sheet. But yeah, hoping for a big play for him because he's had, I think, 7 or 9 straight games now without an interception, and I hope that drought ends soon. Live Loyal, how often is Ben calling his own plays compared to Coach Randy? I think Fietner calls the good majority of the plays, but when they go no huddle, up tempo, and definitely in 2 minute, then Ben calls his own plays and kind of runs the show, as you saw at the end of the half against the Giants, for example.
And then remember RPOs as well too.
Mm-hmm.
They usually run a handful of those during the game as well too.
Did you see the copy of the Steelers play sheet and game plan against the Packers Super Bowl in 2011? Did you see that when it was floating around on Twitter?
No.
I'll send you a copy of that. They have the play sheet there, and under the 2 minute section for play calls, it just says huddle calls, aka Ben just runs the show. So that kind of tells you where Ben really comes in. I'll send you a copy. That's pretty interesting. Let's see. Mark Leslie, do you see any comparisons between the roster this season and previous Super Bowl winning Steelers teams? Yeah, great defense, amazing pass rush. That's harken to the Harrison, Woodley days, the Porter days, guys like that. A really good pass rush with some great outside linebackers. Russ Obenstein, Hilton was everywhere yesterday. We need him and Bud signed. Don't think you're going to get your wish, Russ. I'm sorry.
Go out and buy some jerseys, all of you. Go buy merchandise and buy a few extra million for your neighbors. Look, they're just not going to be able to. I mean, Bud's gone. Bud's gone. Most of them are going to be gone. They're going to be lucky to retain one of the higher rated kind of their own unrestricted guys. They're going to be lucky to retain.
Yeah, I'm still on my maybe fantasy, but of keeping Juju, Filer, and Sutton. If you do that, I'm happy. I know that may be asking for a bit much right now, but we'll see. ODG Dorkman did say yes in terms of the successful plays. He says like the run talk. He also gives us a super chat. Says thank you. This is great. Thank you so much, ODG Dorkman. Dave and I appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, just get you a spreadsheet going or a piece of paper during games, and write down success or no success based on the 40%, 50%, or 100%, depending on a down. 40% on first, 50% on second, 100%, and then you can track your own success rates of the plays in real time.
Mario Colangelo says, can you discuss covering tight ends in the middle of the field in general? What adjustments will they have to make going forward? I don't think they've been really burned by tight ends over the middle of the field. Fant did his damage outside the numbers, so I think it was an issue with tight ends, but Fant's also just kind of an athletic freak, and they were running out of weapons, and so it's no surprise they leaned on Fant with Sutton getting hurt and Judy missing some time, but middle of the field stuff hasn't really felt like the issue right now. Let's go a couple more questions here for Dave and I. Mike Camp, what do you think of Ray McLeod in a return game? I think we can possibly break one loose with him back there. Yeah, back-to-back weeks he's almost broken one. I think the blocking's been a lot better. It starts there, and Ray's an explosive guy with big playability, and we're seeing that very early on.
Just take care of the ball.
There you go. Can't fumble it. Robert Washington, greetings, Alex and Dave. Where in the world is Zach Gentry? Also inactive. And yeah, I know, Dave, you had a couple of tweets earlier talking about if Gentry can't even get a hat now, and then what's he doing here?
Yeah, and this team needs a blocking tight end. I mean, I don't know much about Radar just because of I haven't seen a lot of them. But I mean, if he's the best blocking tight end on the roster right now, and that might not be a stretch to say that right now. Hey, if you can't find ways to justify to get Gentry a hat right now, a couple of games into his second season, go ahead and cut him. Get Gentry on the 53. Rader could probably help you a little bit in some special teams aspect. Put a hat on Rader and get him in there on some of these 2 tight end situations here. That's my thought on it. And Gentry would probably clear waivers, and you could get him back to the practice squad anyway.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Not sure. They talked up Gentry's blocking, and I'm sure it improved, but apparently not enough to the Steelers' liking. Speaking of tight ends, a man after your own heart, Dave. LU says Kittle should have drafted him. Should have drafted George Kittle.
Yeah, damn sure should have.
You miss him this week with him being out? Yeah, well, you Charlie Warner stepping in.
Yeah, and Charlie didn't play all that well either.
No?
So, I kind of thumbed through the tape over there. Some of that 49ers stuff. I didn't think he played all that well in limited time.
Mark Leslie, what would you give for Jesse James to come back? I love Jesse James back in a Steelers uniform. It may happen after this year. I don't know. What's he doing in Detroit right now? I know he's behind Hawkinson. He's probably not doing much.
30 snaps. 30 snaps against the Packers.
How do you know that? Amazing. You just pulled that out.
I just know this stuff, man.
I just know things.
Yeah,
has he made has he caught a pass? Like, have they thrown
I haven't looked at that. I ran over to look at his snap count earlier today. With that, look, I put it on Twitter earlier today.
Right.
At this point, Jesse James might as well be Heath Miller as long as we're concerned right now. And look, I mean, Jesse wasn't all that, but I wouldn't mind having Jesse back on this roster right now. I'll tell you that.
I know he's not making 30 snap money in Detroit. They're paying him like $6 million a year, so I think he's probably going to be available after the season. And if you cut an Ebron or McDonald or both, and if you want to bring back Jesse and draft a tight end, I'm not mad at that. I kind of like that idea. Last question here from Squanch. How do I say this? Squancy. Who is advising Tomlin with all the bad challenges? Yeah, that challenge on the Fant catch, I know it was close, but not worth a challenge there late in that game. Terrell Austin technically supposed to have the role of like challenge guy, but he's basically become the DB's coach, so I don't really know if he's still doing it or if someone else is advising him or how that's working right now, to be honest with you.
Jesse James, no targets, no receptions this past week, and 30 snaps.
All right, yeah, I think he's in his final year with the Lions. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the stream. Looks like the Kevin Dotson interview just went up on Steelers.com, so we can tackle that and look for that later tonight or in the morning.
You people listening to this, thank you for showing up tonight, and get on, if you're on Twitter, pester the heck out of the Steelers Twitter account to post these interviews up of these players, in season, all these Zoom interviews, have them, get on them and ask them to continue to post these interviews of these players during the day. It's troublesome sometimes when they don't. That's my rant.
Yeah.
Peace and love, everybody. Thanks for showing up tonight.
On that note, definitely appreciate the love and support from you guys. We will be back, Dave and I, next Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, answering any and all of your Steelers questions. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.